Hey, I'm bringing guys a brand new sports cards video. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down some cards that I believe are on their way down, some cards that I would not touch over the next couple months. For certain reasons we're going to be going over, but before we get into that, I did want to say this video is sponsored by collectibles.com. It is a social network for sports cards. There's a bunch of cool features on the app. Make sure to go ahead and give us a follow at Sports Card Invest on collectibles.com to keep up with us and our thoughts and everything social around sports cards. So without further ado, let's hop right into the video. All right, guys. So as you guys know, the NBA playoffs is coming up next month, and there are a lot of course, teams that are going to be contending, a lot of hype that is going to be around those teams contending. But one category of players that are going to have a rough next couple months are players who are going to be missing the NBA playoffs. Sellers will be selling their cards, of course, given that they won't be playing another game, until later this year, probably October. So there's a good 6 months in between, the NBA playoffs starting and the following season. And in those 6 months, you start to see a lot of players on teams who will not be making the playoffs. Even the Suns, guys like Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, I see their cards having a little mini crash heading into the offseason. And then, of course, throughout the offseason, they usually recover. You've got a lot of players on teams who will not be making the playoffs that have had a pretty hyped year. The one that comes to mind is LaMelo Ball. He's had an amazing year. He's put up great stats. His cards are a little bit inflated right now, but he will be missing the playoffs. He is one player who I think will have a big correction, when April comes around and everyone starts to move their money into players who are contending for a championship. So I think that's going to be the time where we start to see the dip in LaMelo Ball's prices. I think they will recover prior to next season, but I think the recovery will happen more during the summertime and a little bit later. But I think in the short term, there will be a little sell-off here in LaMelo Ball's card market. So I would not be touching LaMelo Ball for the next couple months. This is mainly if you're doing short-term. Of course, if you're a long-term holder, if you find a card that you really like and you believe in LaMelo for the long term, that's a totally different story. But for the next couple months, I definitely see his market having a correction. The next big guy I think is going to have a big correction this coming couple months is going to be Victor Wembanyama. I know he's already been having a correction recently, but I think his cards are going to have another rough couple months before they recover. As you guys know, Wembanyama's cards get graded at a rate that we've never seen before in the sports card market history. Just the thousands on thousands and thousands of cards that get graded of his every single day. And given he's not going to be playing, his future's a little bit, there's a little bit of fear around his future, a little bit more than there was prior to this injury. So I just think overall his market's going to have a rough couple months. I think there's too much fear in his market and there's too much supply hitting the market to where I don't see his market recovering before the summer, honestly. I think leading into the summer, we're going to see a rough couple months for his market. A lot of people, I think, will be selling off these players and buying into players who will be making the playoffs and who will be contending for a championship. So Wembanyama is definitely on that list of guys I would personally avoid for the next couple months. Of course, you can look through teams. Guys like Zion, I think, is going to have a rough couple months. Of course, Scotty Barnes, LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, I think was pretty hyped. I think when new product comes out for this rookie class, there's going to be a little bit of money that goes away from last rookie class. And I think Brandon Miller is going to be one of those guys whose, cards correct a little bit. I think they obviously weren't quite as hot as Victor Wembanyama, but I still think we're going to see a good, little correction here before next season starts in Brandon Miller's market. Now, next up is going to be players who have an insane amount of hype on them right now and an insane amount of expectation heading into the playoffs. One name that comes to mind is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I don't think he's a bad investment. I think if it's a risk that could pay off. It could go one of two ways. His expectations being the number one seed in the Western Conference, an MVP candidate, his expectations heading into the playoffs are set really high. So the next bucket of players I'm going to be going over are players who, get knocked out of the playoffs or fall short of expectations. So there's a lot of risk when you come into players that have those high expectations. So when I look at the guys with high expectations, you look at the top seeds in the East, the top seeds in the West. These guys are the teams that are going to hold the most amount of, risk, you could say, because the expectations are high. For example, a 7 seed, an 8 seed, a 6 seed, they're not expected to win, so they're not going to be priced in to be winning anything, right? Whereas Shea's prices have been going up a lot recently. Luka's prices have been going up. Jokic's prices have been going up. So that shows that there's expectation heading into the playoffs that they're going to perform and potentially make the Western Conference Finals, potentially make the finals. We've been seeing, of course, Donovan Mitchell's market going up a lot. We've been seeing a lot of players on these top seeds going up throughout the season. So that is built-in expectations, which means if they do not perform up to those expectations, there is more downside for the market to correct. Of course, a lot of people are betting that Shea is going to make the Western Conference Finals, that Shea could make the finals. And if that does happen, you're going to see prices go up just because, I think the expectations a little bit different for each player. I think Shea's a little bit younger, so it's not, I would say, win the finals or your market's going to go down a lot. I don't think it's that because I think there's also the MVP in play. There's a lot of other factors in play for the long term that a lot of long-term holders are coming in. But I do see a risk. If he somehow matches up with the Warriors and gets knocked out in round one, or matches up with the T-Wolves and gets knocked out in round one, or gets knocked out in round two and loses to the Nuggets or the Lakers, I can see his market correcting just because of how high his market currently is, that I think if he does get knocked out, you're going to see prices go down. A couple guys I do like are kind of in that realm that I think their markets are... One, I think there is an expectation for the playoffs, but I think they've done enough and proven enough to where I don't think we'll see as steep of a decline for a guy like Jokic, who's already proven to be a multi-time MVP, who's already proven to be one of the best, if not a top 3 best player in the league, for years to come. So that's where you kind of see, I don't think the sell-off will be as bad for guys like Jokic and Shea just because you have that long-term upside. So those would be a little bit of the safer guys. But if you look at guys who are solely reliant on, I think the Cavs have had so much expectation for this postseason, and they're getting a little bit older, especially their star players like Donovan Mitchell. I think his prices right now are more reliant on a playoff run. I think everyone who's buying Donovan Mitchell's cards, I think a majority of them are buying for a playoff run instead of buying for the long term. Whereas I think Shea and Jokic's market have a little bit more long-term holders because they actually have, Shea has that crazy upside and Jokic already has those MVPs. Whereas if you go after guys who don't have that pedigree, don't quite have that pedigree yet, I will say, don't have those MVPs, don't have those championships under their belts, don't have that long-term, are they going to be the next LeBron? Are they going to be the next Kobe? Are they going to be the next MJ? Which I think a lot of people are speculating for guys like Wemby and Shea. When you look at a guy like Donovan Mitchell, I don't think he has that yet in his market. So I think his prices are baked in for a playoff run. And if they don't end up having that playoff run, I could see prices really selling off. I see the same a little bit with Tatum. I think 2017 Prism scares me a little bit just because it's a little bit older. When you get into your 9th season in the league next year, people are going to be as hyped as they were when you were a rookie. And the truth is that no, there won't be as much hype as when these players were rookies, or when they were second year, third year, fourth year. It just gets a little bit like you're waiting for those championships. A lot of players like Jason Tatum are priced in to be the next, they're trying to, people who are buying Tatum's cards were speculating that he will be the next all-time great, that he will be the next Kobe, that he will be the next whatever it is. I know it's crazy to say, but that's what people were buying in when he was a rookie, when he was a second year, when he was having those runs early in his career. And I think every year that we get by, that if he doesn't win another championship, if he doesn't do anything, I think that's when we start to see those pullbacks because expectations weren't met. So I think expectations for the playoffs are set a little bit higher for guys like that. Even guys like Jalen Brunson. I think he's kind of reaching a point in his career where he's a little bit older. People are wondering, can this guy win a couple of championships in his career? Can he be that face of New York? And I think there's a lot of expectation heading into the playoffs that this will be the year. I don't think there's as many people speculating for the long term that he will be an all-time great. As great as he is, there's just so many players who can get that spot as an all-time great. And I think people who are speculating aren't going for Jalen Brunson, but more so people who are speculating for a deep playoff run, or Knicks fans are going for Jalen Brunson. So I think we will see bigger sell-offs and players like Jalen Brunson, Jason Tatum, a little bit older guys, Donovan Mitchell, guys who are not getting that other demand, where most of their demand is predicated on this year's playoffs. I think that's where we're going to see the biggest sell-off. So I'm personally kind of staying away from that category of players. I'm looking for more so guys who have, one, either a solid pedigree already to where if they do get knocked out, guys like LeBron, guys like Steph, guys like Jokic, I don't see their prices going down so much if they lose, but if they go up, if they do win, I see their prices going up. Guys like Giannis as well would fit in that category for me, whereas guys who don't have that pedigree yet and they're relying on this year's playoffs, they're relying more on this year's playoffs because this is their one chance to get that championship, to get that MVP. Guys who are relying more on this year, I think, have more risk because if they don't meet those expectations, you can see a big sell-off in their prices for all those guys who bought in anticipation of them making the finals or of them making the Western Conference, Eastern Conference finals. But I hope you all enjoyed this video. Once again, check out collectibles.com. I really appreciate all the support on all the videos recently. And other than that, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'm out. Peace.